Hello again, this is Dalla Regattas. We're going to take a look at the drive band. It has recently come to my attention that some new spinners, they may be completely new to spinning, or maybe they have been spinning on a modern wheel with a poly drive band. So now they have a great wheel. How exciting. It's either been given to them, they purchased it, maybe they inherited it, maybe it's been sitting in a corner somewhere for a long, long time. Now they have it. What do they do with it? That's the big question. The drive band seems to perplex some people, particularly if you have been using a poly drive band with some of your modern wheels. I don't think they had poly drive bands back then, 100 years or 200 years ago. What we're looking at is my southern wheel. It's probably from Alabama or somewhere down south. Not sure of the age, maybe 1830s, thereabouts. But what I have on it, and let me step into the picture, and you may or may not see me very much. I'll try and bend over so you can see me. Hi! But what I have on it is cotton warp string, which is a cotton that comes in a cone. And let me bring the camera up closer so you can see. Okay, now you can see it a little better. This is cotton warping that comes on a cone. Use it for weaving. It's very thin, and you can see if I turn the drive band and the wheel, it is just knotted with a surgeon's knot. Some people like sewing them. I've never developed that talent, and you can look up on YouTube different ways to sew drive bands. But to string it on here, it goes over the spindle, underneath. Hopefully you've got the spindle in position, and around the wheel, of course, and back through the spindle. One continuous long drive band. Sometimes we overthink it and think, well, what should I use? We need to think more like our ancestors as far as type of material. It can be very simple, and we'll take a look at that very shortly. We'll also take a look at how do I get it on there. If it's perfectly aligned, this is a grooved drive wheel. If it's perfectly aligned, you can give it a couple of turns, and you should see that it will stay in the groove by and large. Sometimes you have to adjust it one way or the other with one of these little whirls with the grooves. Something else to think about with the pulley or the grooves, if you have an older spindle with a worn groove in the pulley or the whirl, it might be really quite worn to where it's just not going to drive a band very well. It'll just keep slipping and slipping and slipping, regardless of how much beeswax or how thick of cord you will put on it. Here you can see the little surgeon's knot that I have. That one's really not much of a problem with this spinning wheel. Let's take a look at some others. Okay, we've accumulated a few things for you to take a look at. Some different spindles, different drive band materials, tape, scissors, beeswax, very important, and a little diagram. Let's look at it first. If these little grooves, represented by the V's, if those are the grooves in the spindle, then the drive band needs to ride just above the bottom of the V, touching the sides. If the drive band is too small, it will sit down in the bottom of the V of the whirl or the pulley, and it'll just slip. So whenever you have your spindle, take it to the hardware store. Take it somewhere where you have a variety of different materials to try to see what might fit into that little groove in the pulley on the spindle. Some things that we can look at. This one is baker's twine. Comes in different colors. Really fun. Comes in different weights too. That's really cool during the holidays. This is some warp for weaving, cotton warp. I use that quite often. Works very well. This is some 2-ply linen, some flax that was spun. That might work. I've not tried it yet. I'm anxious to try it. Some other hemp cord that works very well on this bat head. I found nothing else worked on this bat head and the wheel when I was using it. So now let's look at some of these spindles. And you can easily tell, look at the difference in the sizes of those grooves. This one's really quite wide. This one's old with the little patch on it. Take a look at that, the variation in the sizes. Of course, it's cracked, it's still functional, but I can guarantee you this middle one right here, see how worn that is? This one, I believe, is an old spindle that I just had a new whorl placed on. This one. And this one is probably my least favorite for functionality. The grooves just weren't pronounced enough for me. I really like a nice, deep V-type groove. This one was more of a U shape. Was not really fond of it, but it works. So you can tell, you just have to try different materials until you find what works with your spindle. Somebody might tell you, oh, I use this, I might use that. Well, you're gonna have to try them. That's all there is to it. And use lots of beeswax once you have your band installed. Okay, we're gonna try putting a new band on this old girl. I have it strung out and I have it fairly cut to length. But since I don't have anyone helping me, see what I did? I put a little piece of tape there, just for now, until I'm ready to tie it. And be sure it goes all the way down underneath. What you need to do also is loosen your tension a little bit on that spindle post. Get it to lean towards the wheel just a little bit, because when we're done, we're going to push that back to give it some more tension away from the wheel and draw up on that band. So let's see if I can do a surgeon's knot for you. Okay, let's try this. I may not be able to do it first time. Hang on. So I've got both ends. I've cut them fairly loose. Let's take off the tape. I'll just put that aside for now. So I've pulled it tight. I'm going to cross them. I'm going to pull it as tight as I can. And this is where it comes in handy. If you have somebody around, you could really use them to hold that. It's kind of like tying a Christmas present. So we're going to take the loop through once, hopefully. And be sure and look up YouTube videos on surgeon's knots. Some people call them square knots, and it's a little difficult to do it and show it to you at the same time. But I'm going to go through a couple of times and really pull that as tight as I possibly can and as small as I possibly can. So now that I have it secured once, I'll go back through again and loop it through a couple of times. Do you see that? And pull that tight again. Now it shouldn't come undone. Look at that. I can pull on the two sides. It's not going to come undone. So I'm not going to cut it yet. I want to give it a turn to be sure it's going to stay on. Whoop. I moved my wheel a little bit out of alignment. Let's move it by the wheel post, not the wheel, remember. And see if it will stay centered. Ooh, it's going to be perfect. Look at that. It's traveling just a little bit. My brace on this one has become dislodged. Oh yeah, that's going to work. So now I can tighten up my tension. I want it just a little bit of bounce, in that dry band, just like I showed you in one of the other videos. Just keep working at it. You'll get it. That's all there is to a dry band. Let's not make it rocket science. You know, we have to think like our ancestors, like they did on the frontier. What would they have used? I appreciate you tuning in, and I so appreciate any comments that you might give me as well. That's great. I'm glad to hear from you. So happy spinning. Have a good time. Bye-bye.